Page 260 or 162, Horus has been identified with men, he notes, and the thunder symbol, the labrys, the double-headed axe, is associated with Min and Horus. In Ptolemaic times, Min himself is likened to the bull upon the mountain. So now we bring another imagery of a mountain involved with these storm gods, and this, of course, begins to connect Yahweh with it as well. He further notes the idea of God's riding the storm is widespread in the ancient Near East, and he gives examples as Enlil, who flourished his whip and drove his chariot in ancient Babylonia. This occurred about 2800 BC. And Sandan flourishes his harpe and drove his chariot at Malaysia about 1200 BC. He mentions that Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud. The Hebrew, reading the Hebrew, Isaiah 19:1, we read, Hine Yahweh, Rokev al Avkal. See Yahweh riding on the swift cloud, or he rides on the swift cloud. Jusenius in his Hebrew Chaldee lexicon notes of Rakav, the word for riding, to be carried, to be a rider on an animal or on a chariot. He says especially of Jehovah, who is carried upon the clouds, upon the wings of cherubim, on the heavens, so on and so forth. The cause to ride in horseback. In the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, by R. Laird Harris, Gleason Archer Jr., and Bruce K. Waldke. This is in Volume 2, on page 847. Rakav is a widely used verbal root cognate to both the Ugaritic Rakev and the Akkadian Rakabu, of which the Hebrew may be derived, and they note that the Hebrew Merkabah, the Hebrew word for chariot, is Merkabah, and of course the Merkabah is the chariot. This is a loan word from the Ugaritic, and this is the big term in Ezekiel's vision, the Merkava mysticism of the Zoharic Jewish rabbis. So it's kind of an interesting tie-in with that. But Yahweh as a storm god, Rokev al Avkal, he rides upon the swift cloud, or he is riding upon the swift cloud. And he mentions that. And of course the pole, Wainwright notes in page 163, he notes the importance of the pole, of course, as an analogy, can be associated with the Scandinavian world tree, the Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil means the horse of dread, and was the storm upon which the storm god Odin rode. He rode on this tree, this pole, this idea of the storm god on a pole, a tree. Thus, in one country at least, the universal support has been identified with the sky animal. There was in Egypt a bull of the sky. And at times, interestingly, this bull was also associated with pillars. In the pyramid text, it said that the star of those who are before the pillar of the stars, the bull of the sky, the pillar of Nubia. So the great bull is identified with another pillar, and the sky pole, the Wach, was personified by a bull. So a pillar and a bull, generally both of the sky, was the ordinary composition of some of the symbolisms associated with this Min figure. Then he says, go to page 168. The poles, on page 164. This is very, very interesting. The Neter hieroglyph, as well as the Jed column. Now, the Jed column represented the backbone of Osiris. And the Jed column are well known in Egypt, and these could very well be representations of the pole. Well, the Neter flag is the hieroglyph for God, and of course the Jed column of Osiris is very important, which I can elaborate on here in a little bit. And he mentions in this context, with these two symbols, the Asherah pole in Palestine, and Asherah was the wife of God, according to William G. Dever's brand new book, just out this year, 2006. Did God have a wife? That's the name of his book, and he contends yes, and that wife is Asherah. And the Attis pole in Asia Minor, and this Neter, of course, actually became the symbol for divinity, its actual self. So there's a very interesting tie-in to some interesting doctrines, some interesting doctrines that are not fully elaborated in the Bible due to translation problems, as many scholars, Dever and Frank Moore Cross and Margaret Barker now and Lane Orley, there's very many who have discussed this Asherah. Well, he says on page 166, Min and Wadjet are definitely related. The joining of Min with Wadjet forms a triad in the constellation of imagery in various cities in Ptolemaic times. It says that on page 166. On page 167, Wainwright is associating the Khnum, one of the Egyptian creator gods, Khnum, with the sky god also. And our figure 1, in facsimile number 2, I have identified as Khnum, the creator god as well. And he's also a sky god. And in Ptolemaic times it was said that he putteth not under the sky like a great pillar, notice this, a great pillar of air. A pole called the Wach was quite common and well known in Egypt, and it's not been appreciated that it was a sky pole. Now, could this be a representation of the celestial axis, you see? The axis mundi of the universe. Again, connecting the heaven with the earth. I honestly think it's very obvious. He says the Wach, this pole, was at least as old as the Old Kingdom, and what it showed was the pillar crowned with the stiff feathers of Min and other sky gods. In fact, in the Middle Kingdom, Min's flagellum was attached to this pole. And in another nome, there was a pillar of Hathor Aphrodite. Even the ancient goddesses had these poles. And Wedjot, the Wach was indeed a great sky pole, comes from a late 19th dynasty passage, Thou great Wach, which beginnest in heaven and reaches to the underworld. See, this ties in the 3 spheres. This isn't just heaven and earth. This pole ties in heaven, earth, and underworld. So this is an all-inclusive cosmological aspect. The Yuan pole, the beginning of the 18th dynasty, thunder is in the southern sky, we read. In the night, storm is in the northern sky. The pillar is fallen in the water. Could this be a reference to the precession of the equinoxes, as Ulansey and Feidler have noted? They're Jupiter pillars of Europe, according to Professor A.B. Cook. This is on page 168. And the sky pillar, Irminsul, belongs to our Saxon forefathers. It was a huge wooden universal post which supported all things, we read, and seems to have originated in a great tree. Such a world tree was the Yggdrasil of northern Europe. This had its roots in the lower regions and supported not only the earth but also the sky above. Evidence has recently shown that this idea came nearer to Egypt both in time and place because it recurs in the Peloponnesus in the 16th century BC. This is in Greece. To this we may add Homer's description of Mount Atlas, who knows the depth of every sea and himself possesses the tall pillars which keep earth and sky asunder. The great Wach, which began in heaven and reaches to the underworld, was clearly another Atlas, a Yggdrasil, or still more accurately, an Irminsul, a great pole which bound the whole universe together. The pillar, the Yuan, was much the same, though it only seems to have held up the heavens. So we've clearly seen enough cross-cultural connection and ancient, antique symbolisms associated of the storm gods.